we're going around.
Yep.
Any opening public comment? Yes.
Just a quick question, and I don't know if you can answer me now or maybe during the meeting or whatever. I was just curious about the status of the audit from last year. If that's completed yet, and when we'll get it, and we'll see it, whatever. Like I said, maybe you can discuss it later. Or
Do you want to answer that, Marjorie, or do you want to wait till you report?
I can answer that now. So I wrapped everything up with them, I believe, at the end of last week. But what I was waiting for was there's a GASB 45 report that we had to do with the new laws, accounting laws that we have to do. So I had to hire a separate actuarial to do that. So we just got the report for that, I want to say, on Monday. So I asked the auditors to make sure that we had the audit completed by the end of February. That's the fastest I could get them to move on.
9-month process. That's a long process. Thank you.
Any other comments? School board minutes from our last meeting. Two meetings. Someone care to...
Motion to approve the school board minutes of January 21st, 2016. Second.
Any questions or comments?
No, I'm tickled. You're really capturing what we were talking about, so thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve the minutes. No, I don't want to do that. I want to read those, sorry. Did we have a non-public down? Is there a non-public in there, Dave?
No,
I think so. Good, okay. I can't turn pages very fast, sorry.
no, that one's over the half.
Okay.
So, I think where Tim was going, we have the minutes from the deliberative session on February 4th that we all just received a copy of tonight. So, I guess if everybody wants to take some time to read it, and then if there's any questions or concerns about it, we can address it at the next meeting. Does that work for everybody? Does that?
Works for me.
Are you okay with that, Tim?
I'm okay with that. Does that interfere? No, these don't have to go into the next annual report, right?
Right.
That's fine, yeah. I think that's right. These don't have to go until the following annual report,
Right.
a year later.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if we can
okay,
just,
so that's great.
if we can just make sure that it's on the agenda for the next meeting so we don't forget, but if everybody could just please read through it, and if you have any questions or comments about it, we'll address at the first meeting in March. Okay, I'm sorry. That's this.
No, you had a
Oh,
meeting before.
yeah, sorry, I forgot.
Page 16.
Sorry.
just a half.
No, you're right. Yeah,
Hopefully it's going
so we had a very short,
Motion to approve the public session minutes of February 4th, 2016.
Second.
any questions or comments?
Well, isn't that part, aren't these part of those minutes?
No.
No, those are January 21st.
This is just for the delivery.
I just have a question because I read them. It was recessed at 5:50. Did you have to go back to adjourn it?
We did.
Oh,
We
okay.
did.
I just didn't see it in the minutes.
Well, I would have had to have been told, because I was.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We could.
Yeah, that was in case
Which I can
anything
add.
came up we had to discuss during the delivery. We could do it afterwards, and you're right. So that's our fault. So
I
it's not
can
going.
add it if somebody wants to tell me.
Bob took the note, I think, of what time it was.
I'll get that.
Let's say what
Oh,
time
I
it
think
was.
it is at the
Yeah,
end.
what time is that?
10 something.
9:52.
9:50.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
So 9:55 or something like that.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
9:55.
Yeah, we took a motion, let's say Dave made the motion, and I seconded it. We were unanimously in favor. Our business administrators report.
Okay, do we need to vote on the?
Oh, gosh, sorry. Any questions or comments about the February 4th minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for keeping me honest. Oh, sorry.
I'm abstaining for that. What's in that report?
Oh, right. Okay.
You want? Oh, there won't be three then.
Yeah, it was Dave,
Okay,
me,
yeah.
and Tim. Okay. Now, what did I say?
So the financials begin on page 18. Nothing has changed in regards to the excess in revenues. So right now, we're still showing $121,000 in excess revenues due to CAT aid and the health trust refund. As of when I printed these reports a week ago, you still had $641,000 to spend in your budget. And 218 of that is due to salaries and insurance. 202,000 is left due to special education. And 45,000 is due to high school. Wendy and I met in regards to her supply lines and stuff like that, and she indicated to me that with the turnover of the teachers that they had this year, they wanted to take a few months to assess what they actually needed in their classrooms as opposed to what the prior teachers had budgeted. So she's working with her staff and spending down that money. And that's all I have to know, unless anybody has any other specific questions or comments.
We won't expect an answer tonight, but if you guys could check. And what have we approved? Some extra things we've approved over the last 6 months that weren't in the budget, that something came up, and I don't know if we've ever kept track of it, or if not, shame on us, we should have appointed somebody to keep
The only
track.
thing-
It was only a couple of things small, but I just,
There were a couple of little tiny
Yeah.
things, but we
Yeah.
figured that was, the only thing is the
I think I can
curriculum director.
think that, and the curtains.
And the curtains,
And the
yeah.
curtains.
that's, I just like
That
a
was-
recap of what it is, because I've forgotten.
It's under 30,000.
Crossing guard, so little things, won't be a lot, but I just would like to have a, and shame on us that from now on, if we do that, we should say we want that recorded and keep with our, what do we call that at the very end, our little parking lot? Maybe keep those figures there, yeah. Did have some questions,
I mean, that stuff would be accounted for in this.
right, but it'll be overspent on some line. I'm just saying, because we're gonna come up in another couple of months, and as we get to the budget, we're gonna come to a point where we might say, we got a few extra bucks, maybe there's something we do need this year that we may wanna get. I just don't wanna forget $2,000 or $100,000, I don't think we're anywhere near that, but I just would like to have a record for us.
So and I agree with Dave, I'm not arguing in any way, but as far as I'm concerned, the time is here. We need to ask tonight for anything that the SAU or the school thinks that are genuine needs of this school, so that we can make that decision next month. I think the time is here. I think it's much smarter to do it earlier than later. I've looked through the monthly financial. I don't really see any problems that I'm concerned about, and I do think we have substantial money, specifically the teachers. If the money I'm looking at is that $87,986 plus FICA plus retirement is a substantial amount of money, and that's the money that I'm most interested in seeing if there's any genuine needs in the school that we should address.
So let's be specific in terms of timing. Is that something to discuss at the next meeting? And the reason I ask that is because next week is a school vacation week, and so that doesn't give.
I'm not the next meeting, next month. Next month,
So
yes.
the second,
Yeah,
the
so
second
that's
meeting.
plenty of
Financial meeting next
Yes,
month.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
plenty of time to go
Sounds
out
good.
and put out the request, and I'm looking for genuine needs, and I know they're out there. And I know that in just the teachers, we're talking 120,000 if you add in FICA and retirement. So,
I know I won't be here come the discussion on that, but I would like to make sure our principal's not here at the moment, but I would like it to be made really clear that you gotta get the stuff together, you gotta make the request, and it shouldn't be this, oh wait, we forgot, oh at the next meeting, oh wait, we forgot, and we have, it should be a comprehensive list of the requests and requirements for the building so decisions can be made and then live with them.
and that will give her, when she comes to us with that, and those we approve, if they're over the threshold, we have time to put it out to bid and everything else, and not make snap rush judgments that are generally not good judgment.
Or have
So,
things accidentally slip
Right,
into
so,
the next
yeah.
fiscal year.
So are we asking for that in like 2 weeks by our next meeting? Or-
No. But
Second meeting in March.
the second meeting in
So
March.
the second meeting in March is going to be our reorganization. meeting
Well, I
as well,
understand,
so-
but as this goes on,
Along that lines, I would like to have the high school separate. So in other words, if we come up with a surplus, I only want the surplus that's in this school. I don't want to think we got another 100,000, that actually was the high school, because we went through a lot of discussion of deliberative sessions and budgets, and we owe a commitment, I think, to the town, that whatever we ask for, we would return.
Well,
So it should be easy, we can, that's
Insurance-
a
insurance
separate
savings.
page now that we've done it that way.
Insurance savings too,
Yeah.
right? When we're-
Yeah.
Well, insurance, we had to give part of that to the people who paid insurance.
no, not
No,
that
but the-
insurance.
oh, no,
There's
the
$125,000
Yeah.
savings in insurance because
Okay,
of that.
right.
That,
Sorry.
not to exceed and then the actual
Right.
number. There's another $125,000 in that,
Right.
if you go through
That'd be
the
great to
budget.
get that split up.
So in that, but I'm only personally looking at the 120,000 teacher. I went personally, and you all have what you do, but I personally went into the teacher retirement fully and expecting to try to figure out things that were needed in the school and spend that money on that. You know, and I did it very upfront. Anybody that asked me, I told them, that's what my intention was. I think we have genuine needs, and that's what I want. I don't want any pie in the sky stuff, just what we genuinely need.
I appreciate that we're thinking about that now, and I'm sure my staff appreciates it too, because when we start making those decisions in May and June, like you said, and going out to bid and everything, it's very rushed
Yes.
at the SAU, so it makes it very complicated. I will speak with Wendy, I'll email her tomorrow morning about this, because I believe she's got some things going on next week, so I'll meet with her during our monthly financial meeting, and we'll talk about this stuff and have her come up with a list.
One last question about food service. On page 19 at the bottom, it's 19. Just for refresh me, please. Food service is at the bottom, and it's current appropriations. We expected to do $55,000 in sales,
Correct.
and then we expected to get, here's where I get mixed up. We get 2,000 from the state, and then we get 54,200. Is that actual sales? I mean, it is coming in as income.
Well,
So-
are you talking about the food, like there's three things, there's the
Yeah.
food service sales,
Yeah,
that's the individual sales that we
okay,
take in from the teachers and the staff and the students.
yeah.
The child nutrition state, that's what we receive from the state, and then the child nutrition federal, that's what we receive.
So we expected $55,000 in sales, and we're getting back $56,000 from the government. So am
That's what I
I,
budgeted for.
so am I to assume correctly that the only people eating in that lunchroom are kids who are on some assistance from the government? We're looking for 55,000 in sales, and we're looking for 56,000 from the government to pay for those.
No, the budget's
That's an extra
100
56,000?
That doesn't
That's
include
what-
those
yeah.
ones yet.
Okay,
That's
so we
totally
actually
different.
do
That's
have
not the free and
$111,000 in
reduced,
sales.
yeah. Correct, that's not the free and reduced.
Correct, all right,
Yeah.
Right.
that's how I thought it was, but I
That's
just
above- That's
want to...
above the sales.
Okay,
Just one to one, actually. Good.
so when you go to page, we're at the last page of food service. And the bottom line is 100 and, where is it, on page 28 on the bottom. All the total budget is $147,192, correct? So we have a budget of $147,000, and we're expecting sales of $111,000. That sound like good business? Mike?
Well, that's why we have that $35,000 transfer.
Right.
Okay.
Right. If you
I'm
look-
bringing
if you
the
look
point
up-
up again.
Yeah, no, I understand.
We are in a mess with food service. I'm sorry, but every year it comes up, and we just wait till the end, and then all of a sudden it's hard for us to figure. We've got to do something about food service. I mean, it's point blank, but I would like to put that on an agenda for the next time. I don't want any real discussion at this time, because we're not prepared.
That's also a related question then. How is, like, the free and reduced lunch, how is that reduced lunch accounted for? Is it just the difference is what gets recorded?
They do the claims in the cafeteria,
Yeah.
and so the federal and the state money, that's what we get reimbursed for. And then if it's like, say lunch is $1.65 and the state covers $1.50, then they give us 15 cents.
Okay.
So they're paying, I don't
So
know, I don't know what the
15 cents would
costs
go
are.
into the regular cost, and
Correct.
the $1.50 would go into
Yeah.
the, okay, thanks.
But as far as I recall, and I'm going last year's figures, we took in, I'm thinking $51,000 in actual sales. Then we took in $56,000 in federal and $2,000 and some change in state, and the difference was the $35,000. So my understanding, and I would love to know if I'm wrong, was the $56,000 that we received from the federal was basically the free and reduced stuff. Is that?
Right,
Okay.
it's the federal and the
That's what they
state
paid
together.
towards the lunch system for the
Correct.
kids who needed help.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have other questions, Steve?
He's got all kinds of notes over there.
Okay, no, I don't, I think we're all, well, yes, I do actually, but it was gonna be in new business, but since we have Marjorie, as I drive by, as I redo the bills and as I drive by today by the school, could we have a recap within the next month of the mechanical, the money we spend on mechanical repairs, really for our furnace? Which would include what they do on the roof for changing air filters. And it seems like we did a big repair job last spring, this summer, whenever it was. But that furnace at 20 years old, again, I think if we get not recoup money, if we get just to know what we've probably spent in the last couple of years on just repairs on that furnace and everything, that bugs me. And the next one is doors, which is, that's one of Tim's ones too, but I'd like a recap of the last year or two of doors, because I see the bills, I see the trucks, and saying, we spend more money on doors than we spend on technology.
Okay, at
I
least
don't know about that.
we're spending $850 a door instead of
Okay,
$1,200.
I just asked, yeah, I'm not,
You know,
to
at
discuss
least-
it tonight, we're not prepared, but, thanks.
I can get that together.
I agree with Dave, but I do think doors in a school with a lot of kids and everything else, opening and closing and all the things go on, it's just part of the problem. But we do spend a lot of money on doors, but gosh, we must have a lot of doors in this school.
Anything else for Marjorie?
Can I get any extra money for my trip to Florida or anything?
No.
While we're talking? Okay.
Not gonna get it if that's
There's
like
nothing
that.
extra? Okay,
All
thank you.
right, let's move on before somebody gets in trouble. So last call for anything from Marjorie, otherwise we're gonna
All
let her
set.
go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. Oh. You better not be questioning. Thank you.
I do. I would like to know on the recent grievance, how much that cost us. And I don't want to know tonight. I know I can't know tonight, but I just, looking at the lawyer's bills in this one, I would just like to know for my own edification. I don't know if anybody else wants to know, but
It's $5,000. We paid a mediator $2,500 or $2,600, and we paid lawyer things. It was I added it up last time. And so it's approximately
Plus
$5,000.
this one?
I didn't look at this one.
Okay, because there's a lot more in here.
Oh, well, I didn't see
So
that.
I'd like to know what that cost us.
Okay, we'll add it up.
Yep, thank you.
Actually,
And then I am done
sorry.
with Marjorie.
Marjorie, just one other thing, because you won't be at our, I'm guessing you won't be at our next meeting, the first meeting in March, and that will be my last meeting. I've been talking about Revolution Energy since I first got on the board, and we always kicked the can down the road for one reason or another. So Revolution Energy is a company, it's a New Hampshire-based company, and they work with schools and municipalities on just overall energy, green energy, and they do it in a way, and I'm going to get myself in trouble trying to explain this, but they do it in a way that really manages the cost. I can't explain. check their website. If you just have to look up Revolution Energy in New Hampshire. They've done things with Exeter High School and their whole solar array, and they work out ways so it's minimal to almost no cost for the district or the municipality. They've done a lot in Epping with the town hall in Epping and a number of other schools.
Karen,
in
is
the
this
community.
one of those things where they put the solar panels on for you and you're renting the solar panels and buying them?
Kind of. I think there's more to it, and I think there's other options, Keith. And it's not just solar. So solar could be an option, or specifically talking about the burner, the boiler, whatever it is. Whether it's maybe pellets versus an oil burner that we have today, and just other energy, other options. So consumption becomes less, or it may be things like just the general energy consumption in the building and working on things like that. We've always punted. At first it was because you were brand new to the role and giving you an opportunity to get up and running. It really has to be something where it's you have to be involved with it. Mr. Tom would have to be involved with it. It'd have to be a collaborative effort. And it may not work, it may not make any sense. It may be something where it's potentially a joint effort with the school and maybe the town, or an SAU kind of thing, or maybe it's just the building. But I think it's in our best interest financially to at least do the research and look into it. The guy, I had talked to him 3 years ago about this. He'll come out and he'll meet with us. He'll kind of explain what and how they do it. He'd meet here in the building with Mr. Tom as part of that, do a tour of the facility to kind of see what's in place today, to figure out kind of options and the whole, can just at least educate ourselves on it. But it was always, you were new, or we were planning the budget, or whatever.
Can I make a
Well, we did
suggestion?
say that we were gonna talk about it after the budget season, so I'm glad you brought it up,
Yeah.
because this would have been one of the great things to put on the parking lot.
Exactly,
items.
yeah. Put it on the parking lot
But-
so we don't forget about it. too.
Right, but
Yeah.
that's the thing, we brought it up before we came up with the parking lot
Yeah.
item idea, so this is great.
So I just want to make sure it's out there. I really think it's something that the board needs to stop kicking down the road and just set up a meeting and start looking into it, just getting even the facts.
Right.
Name of the company again?
It's called Revolution Energy.
I think it's-
They're basically, there's another company, I think in the state that does similar stuff. I just am familiar with Revolution through a Leadership Seacoast program that I've gone through.
I can even involve the board if the board would like to be a part of like a committee or
Yeah.
something like that, to come.
We'll be
with the
appointing
gentleman
committees
from
in
the-
a month, so it'd be good to reappoint.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
We
can
do that
help
as
make
well.
the contact, I'm happy to help with that.
Okay.
And whether I'm on or off the board in any way, but I'd like to see us actually do
Yeah,
something with
I'll
that.
definitely check out the website and everything, but if you could shoot me that gentleman's name that you were
I don't remember.
at some point.
I don't remember his name, but
Yeah,
I'll look it
okay.
up.
But I don't know if you have an email or anything.
Probably way back in the archives. Oh, they have dig. Yep, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Last call for Marjorie. Going. Thank you, Marjorie. All right, our principal's report, we're gonna move that further down the agenda. Our principal had a personal commitment and she'll be here late. Any questions on the monthly enrollment report?
Page 36.
Just something that Bob and I were just talking about prior to the meeting starting tonight. I did just sign, was it 3? I signed at least 3 new Co-Brown students tonight.
This is addition to 4 from the others.
So 3 new ones tonight.
Coming in as freshmen or going in right now as
3, we have one freshman and 2 10th graders.
Plus, we still have those 2 sets of twins coming into the 8th grade. I don't know that either of them have started yet. So just in terms of, I know a big discussion with the budget at the deliberative session is the Co-Brown heads. I just wanted to make people aware. What I've asked Bob to get is just, we have, all the people that have been coming in, but we just want to take a look at what might have been going out, just so we can have some sense of where we are today for Co-Brown students.
Just a question on that.
Yeah.
Just, probably just my own information, I don't know if anybody's, on homeschoolers where we have 14, are they all like 2 2 or 3 kids in each family, or is it like 14 different families? I mean, you got any feeling about what it might be?
I don't know.
Just
I'd have to
curious,
check
I
that.
was wondering,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
because that seems, every year, it seems like there's a lot more homeschool kids, so. All right,
So
There is. It's been growing.
yeah.
because of the whole budget and homeschool kids, did we ever actually sit down and ask or get in contact with the homeschool and find out what their plans were for the homeschool eighth graders?
Well, what we budgeted for in your budget is the 3 homeschoolers that are presently in 8th grade going to 9th grade. Those are the ones the other ones we haven't budgeted for.
Is this something that we could, like, when budget season comes up, that we could get in contact with them and find out what their current intention is?
We certainly can. Obviously, they can change their mind at any point in
Right. I
time.
understand.
And you know, that I think that history has shown us that they're more likely to come in from 8th grade to 9th grade than if they're already homeschooled, they usually remain there. Much like the private schools, that question came up too, that, you know, if somebody's at a private school, do we budget for them? No, because usually they stay there. Not always, but, you know. when they're-
And they also don't have to report to us.
They don't.
Can we get in touch with the private schools and ask them for their, if we can get in touch with their eighth grade family, just so we can ask them what their plans are?
We could.
Was that a reasonable request?
We can ask.
It'd be nice just to get some information from both homeschools and private school kids, see if we can get the number a little more accurate.
Okay, anything else for enrollment? Superintendent's report.
All right. To start off with your personnel report, the first piece here is a resignation from Jessica Richardson. You've got a letter in your packet. She has an opportunity to become an assistant principal in Farmington. And we've had a lot of discussions about that. Obviously, this is not the ideal time of year to be doing this, and she understands that. I've already been in contact with the superintendent of schools down in Farmington and let him know that we would tentatively shoot for a transition of April 1st, which gives us enough time. We've already posted the position, an anticipated opening. We've already started to get in applications. We've got last count, I think we had 3 or 4 in already. And the superintendent understands that I'm not about to release Jessica until a point in time that we are established with a certified teacher in that classroom. So again, we're shooting for April 1st. If we were to be fortunate and be able to speed the process, then we'll do that. But obviously, you know, we're not going to allow the kids to suffer for transition.
And we're looking at somebody just to fill April, May, June.
We're going to be very upfront with the person that we hire that this is a full-time teaching position from now to the end of the school year. At the end of the school year, we will repost the position. And at that point in time, if the person that's in the position is interested in continuing in the position, they can apply for the position, and if they do a wonderful job, then they've got a, 3 or 4 month interview here, so.
Is the reason for doing that just so we're not locked in and tied down in the event the person's not as successful as we would hope them to be?
Well, I mean, in reality, you know, if you've hired a teacher to come into our building, you can always make that decision at the end of the year whether it's working or not anyway.
Right.
But I just want to be upfront with somebody that, you know, at this time of year, we may get a very good pool of candidates. We may not. I don't know. This is a little bit of an awkward time of the year to be filling something that's basically 3 or 4 months.
Does that impact the ability to really attract and hire the best person by setting the stage immediately that this is a 3-month?
No, I don't think so under the circumstances. I mean, personally, I would look at that as a 3 to 4 month interview, and if I can't sell myself in 3 to 4 months, I mean, I would look at that as a wonderful opportunity.
So the kind of person that you're gonna find now is somebody who's not currently employed in a teaching position, more than likely because of the temporary nature of it?
I think instead of the temporary nature, you're gonna find somebody that's not employed in a teaching position simply because it's the middle of the year.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Not because it's temporary, but the timing.
Right, but, I think we're, yeah, okay. Okay.
But like I said, I think we've had, we just simply posted it as an anticipated opening, and we've already got 3 or 4 applicants that, we'll move.
Motion to accept her resignation? Is that what we got?
Yep.
Motion to accept resignation of Jessica Richardson?
With regret.
With regret.
Second.
Just like a comment, I read a lot of cover letters and a lot of resignation letters in my professional career, and this is one of the best resignation letters. It's sad. I've always enjoyed Jessica. She's taught both my kids. I think it's a real loss for the school that we're losing her. I totally understand from her professional career growth why she's doing it. She's been very open and honest with administration about her desire to move into administration. So I respect what she's doing, and this is really a well-written resignation letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
I just want to make sure that, because, this personally affects me, my son is in her class right now, that Jess is going to be involved in the interviewing process with the new person, because she knows those students that are in the classroom right now. So I'm hoping that will be looked at, and she'll be involved in that.
So what's that?
Yeah.
I'm going to take the next one by itself. We had talked about a curriculum director position, and we put a lot of thought into how we can fill that from now to the end of the school year. We know that we're going to be voting on that, or the community is going to be voting on that, whether it's going to be part-time or full-time, and it's whether it's in the budget or the warrant article passes. And we were trying to get the biggest bang for our buck from now to the end of the school year, and we thought that that it may be a disjointed position to have somebody come in now and fill it temporarily, and then if it goes full-time, that person may or may not be in the position continuing. So we're trying to get the best way to utilize the money wisely. Mary Ann Nice has been working in the building. She's the lady that did the presentation in front of the board a couple of meetings ago. She's been consulting, and one of the biggest pushes that we really want to try to get done before the end of the year is the reading program, and purchasing a reading program and making some good solid recommendations on that, which Mary Ann has been involved in. So I think that rather than fragment a curriculum director again from here to the end of the school year, this would be a wonderful way to spend this money and have her spend her time on where she has already started her time as a consultant, and utilize those talents to take us through that process of being responsible with purchasing the reading program. So that's why this is on here in this manner. And we're figuring that if we added to her consultant pay of 10 to 12 days, then that would be adequate to take us through the process.
So we'd
Did
still
we
be.
lose our person?
Yeah, remember Ann Davis resigned.
After
You
Christmas,
remember
at Christmas time, she resigned.
She snuck off in the middle of the night,
She had
basically.
How did I miss that?
She gave like no notice and did it via email rather than talking directly to anybody.
Our 2-day person.
Yes.
And we were paying her what?
Wasn't this much.
No, it wasn't even.
No,
like
it wasn't
half
this
that.
much. It was based off 70,000. I'm trying to remember, Tim. I can't remember what per diem was.
Yeah, must have been in the 8.
So, I'm trying to understand what you said. Because certainly if, and that's a big if, the town were to approve the 3/5, and we have 2/5, you're not thinking that this person's gonna fill that spot, are you?
No.
No. So we would still be paying her consultancy rate and the stipend in addition to the consultancy rate, because she's still gonna do what she's doing today plus extra? Is that-
She's contracted to do some consultation for us in our building, and that is separate. I believe that's under, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember, Title II funds, I believe.
It's gotta be a grant.
And this is the piece that's out of your money that you were setting, basically earmarking for the curriculum director position. And the reason that I want to utilize it for this, it's above and beyond that. And it's setting up, whether it's visitations to other schools, whether it's running workshops or demonstrations or whatever it is to get through this program so we can make an informed decision as to what the reading program's going to be.
And there's no conflict of interest between the two, the stipend position and the consultancy?
No.
So you really think 10 to 12 days is going to be enough?
For this process, yes.
This process being just a selection of the
Just
program?
the taking through the reading program. And I believe we have, let's see, in your packet, yeah. In your packet, we've got a list of, some of the things that we would expect. Basically just taking it through the process of transitioning into this new reading program. And again, our curriculum director had started being part of this process, and when she left, it kind of left a void there for somebody to take over. Mary Ann's been in our building, she knows our teachers, she's been working well with our staff, so we just think that that would be money well spent for this limited amount of time.
Is that the remainder of the budget for the rest of the year, or is there more?
We didn't have a
Or should we
budget
do-
for that
should we do-
position. We did not have a budget.
Yeah, it was an unbudgeted position, so I would personally say that as far as your curriculum director piece, again, I don't want to fragment it. We've already had one person in it part-time. That person's left. If we hire another person part-time, we don't know whether it's going to be full-time or part-time. I would rather see how the vote came out and then move forward, in a methodical manner for next year rather than fragment it again. And I think that we can get, some nice work done with Mary Ann.
Any other questions about it? Somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to approve Mary Ann Nice, short-term curriculum consultant.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm gonna vote for it, because I know we have the money, and I know there seems to be a lot of people that like the curriculum director, and frankly, to be honest with you, this lady did herself a lot of favors in that presentation. I have had several people speak of the job that she did. I am very concerned about this, but it's only a short time and it's only for a set amount of money. So as long as somebody would put in there not to exceed $67.20, then I would vote for it.
Not to exceed 6720. I amend my.
Yeah, I would expect that kind of thing.
That was all I had to say,
I just
yeah.
have a question. So by doing this position, I'm assuming this would help so that it would take some of this type of stuff off the reading specialists and everything already in the school. She would be able to take some of that off their plate to help them to get the new reading program into the school that we need.
Yeah, whenever you're looking at a new program, I mean, you've got a lot of legwork there. You've got a lot of talking with vendors. You've got a lot of setting up visitations. I mean, if you're going to do it right, it's very time consuming, and this would really help in that manner.
So you're speaking of reading program, though. I thought that it was the reading program that we put into next year's budget.
That's what we're doing.
So, all right, so
So you
this,
guys
what this
select
is
the
set up.
program now to be
Yeah.
able to
Right.
purchase.
okay,
to
so
start of the
she
year.
would be able to help us in that reading program coming into the school.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what this is for, to help us through the process of making an informed selection.
So the idea is you
So I
make
thought
the
we had a
decision-
selection. I mean, Mrs. Daypre led me to believe anyway that she had a particular program that went out to bid. It was $47,000 when it went out to bid, and she added a little and made it $50,000, thinking that it would cost another $3,000 a year later. So we don't have a decision on what reading program we want? Is that what you're telling me now?
I don't believe that's the case, no.
That just surprises me because those are the questions I asked, because when you go out and you ask for $50,000 for something, then my antenna goes up because that's a round number, and I don't think reading programs and different things come in at round numbers. And so she explained to us at the board that this was the reading program that she had wanted before and wasn't able to get in the last year's what we called wish list. I hope we don't call it that this year, if you remember, and that she still wanted that particular reading program, but she put it in at round 50 because it was, she just put a little extra thinking that the price had gone up for a little bit for the extra year.
If everybody's okay with the fact we have our reading specialist here, and if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, and everybody's okay with her providing input, can you speak to this?
So, I believe what you're speaking about is a reading program that we were looking at last year, which was the Wonders program. It had just come out, so it was a brand new program, and that figure was the figure that was researched to find out for that program. Since then, another program has been put out, and we felt it was in our best interest to look at both programs and make a decision on what would work best for our school.
Do you have any idea what the price of that one is?
They're pretty close to being the same, and
that
we
makes
have
sense.
both.
I mean,
We
that's
have
fine.
met with both of the salespeople, and I think the intention is, no matter what, we're going to make sure that we stay in that price range, from my understanding of the money.
Just a general business question about this sort of stuff. I understand that the world of academia is different, but when we're purchasing a program like this and the salesperson says it's $47,000, do we just go, okay, here's a check for $47,000, or do we actually try to negotiate these things?
Well, a lot of times you negotiate it, and a lot of times the negotiations might include additional professional development days, additional materials, those types of things. So it's not just, there's a lot of other things with the package, and a lot of times you can get those add-ons as well.
And they have shared some of that with us, of what they're going to throw in, and both of the companies know that we're looking at both, so I think that they're probably more so. We can give you this or that.
Anything else? Any other questions or comments about the motion that's on the table for the short-term curriculum consultant stipend? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
The next two, actually three that you have, Jerome Courier, full-time custodian, Wilbur Price, part-time custodian, and Shauna Riley, a paraprofessional.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then finally, you've got some, I'll take all of them except the last one, stipends for additional clubs that have come up, and you also have, I believe, some new staff in there as well. You had a discussion early on about whether new staff was going to get an opportunity to do clubs, and these people have settled into our building nicely, and some of the people on there are new staff members as well. So you've got stipend requests. And I'll take the last one, the Title I coordinator, I'll take that one separately.
So motion to approve the stipends for Lisa Lavella, $275, Kim Clemens, $200, Megan Mantell, $225, oh my goodness, $625, Lindsay Nelson, $375, Becky Rush, $300.
Second.
I have some questions.
Can somebody say that name for me?
Mr.
Mr.
O.
O.
Who's got it all on the Phoebe?
I just, and I wish our principal were here to hear this. I had I have a real concern with us being presented to approve stipends, and they're advertised to students in the school without the board's approval. What if the board was to say no tonight, and we've already gotten children interested in it? I think that's really
Well,
inappropriate.
also to go along with that, I mean, there is a clubs committee that's supposed to meet and go over the clubs, and that's where the board can give some, and I don't believe any of that happened again.
So,
Just like last time.
I'm against the way this has been, and I'm not gonna vote for these tonight. I'll vote no for these tonight. And some of them, I'm like, I don't ever remember us having a 7th grade advisor. It's like all of a sudden.
so I think
things
the
are coming.
idea is that
Yeah, I
she, because I'll speak based as an 8th grade parent right now, and what I've seen with prior years in terms of the class planning for their trip. It takes a lot of time and fundraising and work to get a class trip as big as Washington DC, which would be the hope that it could be kind of a cookie cutter approach, that there's a template for how to do it and a plan that each class can just replicate with support from parents. The 8th grade the trip to Washington DC fits in very nicely with the 8th grade social studies curriculum. The idea, and please, if I'm wrong about any of this, let me know, but the idea is that, and as 8th grade parents this year really struggled because they were ready to start the ball at the end of last school year, the end of their 7th grade year, and this very engaged group of parents were completely discouraged and turned away and told them, no, you can't do anything because you don't have an advisor for the class yet. Which in this town, we talk about not being able to get people to volunteer, and we wonder why. And we had a group who was ready and raring to get started, and they were discouraged every time they turned around. So the idea is, if you can get that advisor in place at the end of their 7th grade year to follow them through to 8th grade, that 7th grade group of parents could begin planning and fundraising and all of those other things to put them so much further ahead as the students get into 8th grade, and that this could be a plan that could be replicated year after year after year, so we don't get to 8th grade and the kids can't figure out where to go and they don't have money and now they're at a water park.
Okay.
So that's the intent.
All right, well, and then shame on us or shame on administration that we didn't get these plans in place when we start the school year, and here we are with 3 months left before we start in school, and we're playing catch up and trying to come up with new positions that
I agree.
we haven't discussed in budgets, or we haven't discussed in a committee meeting that we're supposed to have according to our
Well,
contract.
these are in the budget, though.
So-
These positions are in the budget because it's part of their stipend thing. I'm just
Right.
making that point. They are in the
Sure.
budget. I mean, this
It's
is
in the collective
unspent money,
bargaining.
yeah.
The
it's
collective
in the
bargaining, but there's a
So-
process that it's supposed to go through.
Absolutely, I'm not, yeah.
So,
That's
one
true.
of the things that Karen has brought to the table is our, whatever we call it, draft Northwood School Board responsibilities. It seems like maybe this should be entered into there somewhere, so that next year we don't get caught again having this discussion. And I'm not sure just where, and should it be brought in twice? Do we approve some right after the beginning of the year and some maybe in January?
And
Is there a timeline in
I'm
the-
speculating, but we did emphasize that brand new teachers should have the opportunity to take on some of these stipend
Yep.
roles. And so that could be why some are being presented now as opposed to earlier, giving new teachers a chance to get established. So that
That's good.
that could very well be the point. My biggest concern with all of this, I saw Pokemon Club advertised up and down the hallway as I walked in. And you shouldn't be going out to the students advertising for something that hasn't yet been approved, because there's always the risk that it doesn't get approved.
So what if we did it in December?
Well, I want to make sure it's not part of the collective bargaining. I can't remember if there was a date in there.
No, there's no
No.
date. No, there's
There
an
is no
amount,
date,
and we
just
raise
that.
that amount to the 50,000.
I'll put that piece on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, that's just another piece that maybe we could in future look at and not miss. Meanwhile, I personally am going to vote for favor just simply because I don't want to hold them up.
Well, and I don't want to disappoint a whole student
Yeah.
who's seen a Pokemon Club. I don't even know what the heck a
I do
Pokemon
think
Club
we
is or does.
Did not do our job.
Question, are you looking at the contract? Is
What?
it in there?
I
Part of
agree,
the contract
but-
that we have a committee form?
We're still in
I thought
charge.
it was. I have it right here, I'm looking right now. But I don't want to hold it up either. I think it is though, I think that's what we looked at the last time,
I think we had that discussion back in October,
yeah.
September, October.
Just a matter of finding it. I don't think we need to hold up the vote if that's okay. Do we need to hold up the vote for it?
Well, I guess my question is, if that's a part of negotiations, are we gonna have to, then have the union have a vote to disregard whatever's in their contract? And are we gonna have a vote to disregard what we have in the contract?
Why is it part of the negotiation? I mean, in 20 years, we negotiated it once, and we negotiated it up, raising the money and increased the amount of
And I'm all for that.
clubs. And so that's what we did, is we raised it from 10 to 15, but we said you can't split that into 10, and so we raised the amount of clubs. We asked for more clubs. I specifically asked for more clubs.
I
No,
did
what
too.
You know,
Dave
the
is
kids
saying.
liked it, so.
No, what Dave is saying is that I believe that the CBA says that there has to be a clubs committee and that the, that
There's
the.
a process and procedure
Yes,
that has
there's a
been thrown in my
process
face
and
for 7
procedure, and
years.
if these,
Well,
if we agree to these and it hasn't gone to the clubs committee, which none of them have, because
Which is
I
exactly
believe
what
you and I
happened
are
at
the
the
clubs
beginning of the
committee representatives, and we have not been invited to a single one this year.
Right.
If we vote like we actually did before, then we're breaking the CBA. That's what he's saying.
I don't have a copy of their contract with me.
I
Does
have it
anybody?
right here.
Good.
That's
Could
what
you
I'm
take a
saying.
look so we know?
But I'm saying, well, and I guess that's the thing is, if we're breaking the contract, then
I don't want to break
leave
it
it
down.
early.
Can I ask that you'd be willing to amend your motion so that we can vote on the subject committee advisor by itself?
Sure.
I'm perfectly okay with
But
that.
if it's through a club, if they're taking it out of the club and we're saying that if the club is part of the negotiations, we're breaking the
I
CBA.
don't think it's,
But if they're taking it out of the club's money, I'm not sure, am I wrong,
I'm
Bob?
not sure.
We
If we're
certainly
taking the
can
money.
pick which clubs we want to approve. So we did not approve the sports betting one. Remember? You know, we did not approve
We
that.
did actually. It just didn't happen.
Oh, all right. I didn't think we did.
It just says each club will be
Oh,
approved
it
by
was
the
just you and I
club.
voting against it?
So,
And you're the
But there
sports
was-
nut.
there was
it's
nothing-
not met.
Can I have permission to speak? I know
No.
I'm not part of the town, but
Whoops.
can I have permission to speak to this since I wrote
I'm okay
the
with that,
email?
she's the head of this.
Well, I think the board would need to unanimously agree to that. Well, I don't know about unanimously. The board would need to agree to it because, we don't give the public a chance to speak generally, and Ms. Dow's not a Northwood resident, so are you all in favor?
I am fine with it.
Did we ever get to the CBA yet?
Yeah, he just read it.
Oh,
It
what
is
is
part of it. It says that they will be,
Each club will be approved by the club committee.
which has not met at all this year.
Then I'm not going to approve it.
That's why I wanted to do the subject committee advisor. just 'cause
Well, I don't
it's
think
not
we
a
should
club.
approve any of them until the club is met, or till the committee is met. I'm sorry to say, and that bothers me that this is happening. Hopefully that'll get to
That's
the
happening again
people
for a
who are
second
involved.
time. That's me.
Right, you, Tom?
Yeah, no, I won't vote for it, so, I mean, I'm not,
Well, I think the question
We
was,
have
can Warren
Oh.
Ms. Dow speak? And I said, yes. Are you guys against it or for it, or?
It's very brief. I'm okay with it.
This is, she's speaking to this thing.
yeah, it's brief and she's involved in it, so.
Tim?
Go ahead.
Yes. So I was approached by Mrs. Daypray to discuss the monies that was left in the stipend line. And it was brought to my attention that there was thousands of dollars left in that line. And so due to the fact, she said that there were so many new educators and teachers like Karen was speaking to, this list was made due to the interest of all of those teachers. So I wrote this email in conjunction with Mrs. Daypray because of those conversations. Now, me being NTA president, I know that there is a contract to this, and we do have to meet with the committee, and I know Dave and Keith, you are on that committee.
But unknown to me, being so late in the year, and I know that there was an issue at the beginning of the year that we had to meet, and for this year's committees, I am unaware that we had to meet again too, because this is money already in the budget, that it was not utilized. So that, unbeknownst to me, Mrs. Daypray did not make that clear to me. So I just want to speak to that. That is why I made those dollar amounts with the $2,000 that she had given me as a chunk of money to spend. So just to make that clear.
That's really helpful.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I want to make it clear, I don't think the issue for any of us is the money.
No,
It's not about
Money.
spending the money, and we would
It's about following
happily.
procedure, and I get
Well,
that.
it's
the
more than
process,
that.
yeah.
We would happily spend the money, that you're right, the money's in the budget. It's about following procedure, but it's also about not presenting things to students that we don't know for sure is
But I think
approved.
that was the intention tonight, to include, because I know Mrs. Daycray did ask certain individuals what the purpose of their committee or their club was, and I'm not sure if she has that information for you or not tonight, so I can't speak to that.
So, number one, I'm going to take back my motion, and hopefully the other person will too. And then I really think that we should think of the possibility of approving certain ones of these that we want, with the caveat that they're not finalized until the board, the committee meets, and they approve them also. So tentative to approval of the committee.
Or can we just get something that from the NTA saying that they are, that, you know, that it's fine?
I think it's a good process, and, you know.
And that we make sure that
them
next
meet
year we
with the
follow the
committee.
process.
The other thing you could do is to send it back to the committee, meet, and then we'll bring them back to our.
Yeah, just, it's holding things up, that was my only concern.
Well,
But
I
you're
know
right,
it
we
is,
can,
but-
we can make this final decision in 2 weeks when we meet, or
Right.
whatever it is.
Well, it'll be
And
less
that's
than
fine.
2 weeks because students and staff are off on vacation next week, and then our next meeting is 4 days from when everybody gets back. So
So it's almost up by 5.
That's not my problem.
It would, I know, I'm just pointing out, particularly to anybody who might be on that committee, that there will be urgency to have a meeting sometime between, what is that, Monday, March 27th and Thursday, whatever the dates are.
I'm personally not willing to circumvent in any way the CBA.
Okay. So you
I
rescinded your
did
motion,
rescind
I don't
it.
remember who seconded it.
Oh, I nobody,
Sure. I didn't.
I didn't get it.
All right, was that whoever, oh, okay, so rescinded, one of us did, but we're good.
Okay.
I take the second, I get that second.
Okay, there was one more on here.
Yeah, the last one on here is, you approved a stipend for our Title I coordinator. I believe it was $2,500. Last year, we had a Title I audit that went really well. It was a lot of work, and from that audit, there are a lot of changes that are done in the program, as well as, I believe there was some family nights and other open house things that were going on. And I had a discussion with Mrs. Daypray and Fred Wolf, and we would like to request that an additional $250 be considered for a stipend for the Title I coordinator for both work that was done last year on the audit, as well as the follow-through from that audit and things that are going on this year as well.
Somebody like to make a motion?
So we're talking $250?
Correct.
That's from a grant?
Yes.
No. I've lost my place.
The $250 from grant?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Whew, that was a lot.
That was easy.
Yeah, maybe.
So is our custodial staff, and I don't know even know, are we full up now? Are we staffed?
I believe we are now with these hires.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Tom that involved in those interviews?
Yes. Let me see, what else do I have here? The non-CBA that board feedback, I have some information that I'd like to give the board, but I think that we should do that in non-public at the end, so we'll move over that. School board timeline, I just put these in here for your information. To be honest, I haven't had an opportunity to go back and clean it up. I'll put those things that we talked about tonight on that timeline as well, so we don't lose sight of those. And also the last one with the co-curricular, the curricular stipends there. I'll put that on the list as well.
There was just another note, so with regard to busing, with reviewing, revising, and approving the bus routes, it's on the calendar for July, and I would encourage the board to look at those earlier because school starts in the end of August, and if there's changes or issues as we had this year, I don't know that that's really, there's no sense in rushing through things. I would start them earlier and do them right. And then the other piece, and I don't know if it's on
when
here.
When do parents have to sign up for the buses?
That takes through August usually for her to get the information from all the parents, which, so if there's 5 extra kids moving on that side, it affects, and 5 less here, it affects her.
Well, then
She
what
doesn't
I
know
would
for sure
suggest
usually.
is that
Yeah,
we
we can start the
collaboratively
process.
work with her on something, but just even get it on the radar in June,
Yeah,
even
back
if you
it
don't
up.
have the information. But I think this year everything was just way too late. We weren't
We
even
might be able to
thinking
get
about
tentative
it.
routes in June and then finalize
Yeah.
in July.
And
or
then
something
the
like
other
that.
piece is the contract. I don't remember how many years.
There's 3 years.
But still, I would still
Certainly
recommend capturing it.
into
even
August,
with a
yes.
year on it, but
Yeah.
Put it on the calendar.
The sooner we start, the better. Takes a long time.
right. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, maybe in October, the written notice of intent to bargain, October 4th. Can we move that maybe into September or
Yes.
the end of August? That just to,
I agree with all
start a
this.
little bit earlier to.
So looking at our calendar, we have discussion of 6th grade science campus school board on there for February. And are we going to do that? Have we done it? We'll start using
Not sure.
it for
What
two,
is
right?
your question? Did we discuss this year's science camp, or are you just in general about discussing
This
stuff?
year's.
Yeah, just
It's on our calendar, right, for February, that we should be doing this, right?
I don't know what the discussion
I don't know
was.
what needs to be discussed with the board.
Okay, I don't know, but it's just on our February, if you look at the timeline, it's on our
We
February.
really, and I don't think we really need to go through this. So, if you look like in February, we're preparing for the budget hearing. When was the budget hearing? Very early February. So, that should be in late January. Deadline for petition warrant articles. Well, the deadline for petition warrant articles was January 12th, as I recall. So that should be in December or January. And I'm not complaining. I'm glad they're all on here, but I really think we need to, in the course of the next meeting or something, go through this and look at all of that.
Well, so the idea was that this is at
And we
least the
obviously
second time
have
we've
it.
seen it, right?
Yes.
For us to do exactly that. So if there's additional things that we want to point out tonight, let's do that and capture it. Otherwise, please make sure you review it and come prepared the next meeting to provide input. But in general, I don't think we've planned things, as this is laid out, I don't think we've planned to start things early enough. I think for the most part, things are on here when they're due, as opposed to when the planning should actually begin. And I would encourage the board to start earlier than you think you should start, because we always end up in a time crunch when most of the time it really shouldn't be necessary. Any other comments on this tonight that you want to call out, things that you've noticed? Otherwise, please take a good look at it and come back next meeting.
I would say even before next meeting, if something jumps out at you, shoot me an email so we can adjust it accordingly, so we'll have a more accurate document.
So you were talking about our page 37, 38-hour draft on the school board responsibilities. And could I add into that, take a look at the parking lot items and timeframes too?
Well, I mean, anything that we're gonna do every meeting anyway, it needs to be on there.
Do you want us to stay stuff now, Bob, or just send it to you?
Either way.
Like the discussion and preparation of warrant articles, I don't know if that was mentioned in the meeting, right? Okay, wasn't sure. I didn't
Anything
Dave,
else?
do you have a facilities person?
Yeah.
When's the last time we've had a meeting?
Never.
All school year?
Not since this summer.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that is certainly something that should be done in conjunction with the possibility of spending some of the teacher retirement surplus. You know, we should look at the building and see if there's any things around the building and inside the building that we want to consider.
I'll put a call into our principal then and have her set that up with our facilities.
Speaking of the devil, oh,
Anything else on the timeline? Anything else for our superintendent?
Yeah, well, it's not the timeline, I guess, what we do. I'd like, now that our principal's here, to have between the principal and our superintendent, I'd like our AD to assess all these sport programs we have and the salaries that we are paying and the requirements we have for the coaches. And I would like a little discussion about maybe, we do have maximums, we don't have minimums. And this year for me, we had an athletic program, and it was it was the cheerleaders, and it was like only 6, you know. And we did have that before in the past, and we stopped having basketball teams because there was not enough kids for a team. There was maybe 6 or 7, and it's just not enough. So that said, and part of that,
that would change. I'm sorry, before you go on, that would change for whatever the sport is, though, right? I mean, if there was only 6 football players, I'd be very concerned. And I know we don't have football, but if there's only 6 cheerleaders, that's not as big a concern to me. I mean, 6 cheerleaders is a pretty good cheerleader squad.
Well,
but
okay.
It wouldn't be a very
I
good.
think some of the concern is the amount of the stipends for because in a I truly don't mean to pick on cheerleading, but there are only 6 girls participating in cheerleading this year. That stipend is, I think, more.
It's about the same as a basketball coach.
And
I don't have any.
That's a very good conversation to have. Yep.
So if you compare things, if you compare responsibilities, the basketball team, for example, they travel, so the coach is responsible for the children to and from games. The cheerleading team doesn't travel; they only stay, so they have half as many games theoretically. So, there's.
But aren't the stipends based on how many hours are put into the?
No.
No?
The stipends for those were, the last time they were discussed was 8 years ago when I came on board. So I think it's just time to get them assessed.
I'm thinking of a contract thing that not to exceed so much an hour.
They are the contract.
No. That's under the, what we just discussed, the extracurricular.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The clubs.
So I
Just the clubs. Okay.
I just wanted to say, it's been a long time and I know.
Well, it's a good thing to look at. I just.
We are going to be doing the athletic
I
policy.
space out when you get to sports, and I admit it.
Before we go on to any new business, Wendy, do you need a few more minutes to do the principal's report? Do you want us to come back to that, or are you ready?
No,
to do
I
that?
think I'm good. I think I'm good if you're ready for it. Yeah, thanks. My apologies for being late. I was at an academic event at my own kid's school, which just ended. So, okay, so principal's report, there was a bunch of stuff in the written report, nothing in particular to ask about. Just a lot of kudos going out to a lot of staff members for doing a lot of great things, and much of what was in this particular report was also published just this week in the Sun as a What's New at Northwood article. So
That was nice.
happy to be able to get that out. We're going to hopefully do that a lot more.
There is information in here about the activity stipend reallocation proposal. I don't know if you have talked about that yet.
Oh, we did, and I would actually rather not rehash the whole conversation right now. There's problems, so I figured out to give all that information.
Okay. All right, that'll be continued another time. So I did want to make mention publicly, because this came to me just as I was getting ready to send the report off to print. I received a beautiful thank you note from the staff at the Meadows, and they all signed it. It was a beautiful card, and it just said, 2 of your students, Campbell and Tyler Hartford, took it amongst themselves with the help of family members to generously cook and serve breakfast for us seniors at the Meadows of Northwood on February 7th, 2016. Their cooking was splendid and their service explicit. We think they should be recognized for their kindness to the community. So I wanted to make particular mention of that, because that was certainly a highlight of the mail pile that I get on any given day. And I know probably Hartford is serving on the board too. So kudos to those kiddos and everybody they brought together to bring that meal to those seniors, because they absolutely loved it. Okay, so that's, any questions on that report? It's self-explanatory what's in the report.
So I just wanted to say thank you to the 4th grade team for the sledding day that they did for the 4th graders. I know my 4th graders had a fantastic time with it.
Thank you to the weather gods for giving us that temperature at 10 minutes to kickoff time, so that they could actually be outside at that time of day with that weather. So I'm glad. It was a great, some great pictures, and some people, the kids had a really good time. Families had a really good time. It was definitely well received. I did want to mention that since our last meeting, it was brought up that there was still some concern about the drop-off in the morning, and we tried a new procedure this week, beginning on Monday, that we carried through, that we're carrying through this week, and it seems to be alleviating a lot of the pressure. There's 2 buses that come later than all the rest. There's 5 of them that come pretty quickly and pretty early. There's 2 that come later than all the rest. And as soon as those 2 are done and ready to drive out of the road, one of us in the front is getting to the front corner, and we're directing 2 incoming lanes. We're directing 1 to the front of the building, and we're continuing to direct 1 to the normal pathway. And that seems to have alleviated a lot of the congestion right at that time. As soon as we can get the buses moving forward, we can bring new cars into that bus lane, because we know there's no concern of bus kids or traffic in that, and it really has done a lot at this point to alleviate that pressure. So we're still going to look at reconfiguring. I did talk with Sergeant Wells about other potential options for reconfiguring that, and he said it's really difficult because it's a one-way road. We don't want to have cars going up and in and out in the same road. And if you're having buses drop off, having parents come from the back to the front, they're going to have nowhere to go if the buses are still coming from the front in. So what we're working with right now seems to have helped a lot, but we're going to continue to look into it.
I think a simple communication to parents, reminding them of bus drop-off etiquette, like pull all the way up to the steps, don't pull out around another car, wait to move out. It just, I think, would go a long, long way in helping to manage some of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll do that. We just wanted to give the trial a chance, because now, since it's working pretty well, we can actually officially tell parents that that is what we're doing, and let them know that if they come up and they see someone directing them to the front, then that's where they're to go, and if they see someone directing them down the road, then that's where they're to go. We also did send out a communication to everybody regarding bus etiquette that was shared with us from Deb D'Alessandro. She asked us to send something out, and it talks a lot about bus pickups on the road and where kids should be standing, and the etiquette that goes along with her transporting kids and dropping kids off, and where parents should wait. So hopefully that was well received, because that went out as an alert as well to parents.
Have you ever asked anyone that's been around here a while if we're getting more drop-offs than we used to? It seems like we have less kids, but it really does seem that we have more drop-offs than I'm used to in the last couple of years. It seems to be building, and I just wonder why.
Well, I
Are we
speak
doing
as
something?
one family. My kids always took the bus, but when the bus started coming 25 minutes earlier than it used to, the kids.
So are those the reasons? That's my question.
I'm just talking as one family.
And that's fine. So that's
I
one
think.
input. But I'm just wondering. And it's not that I mind people dropping off their kids, but I also think it's one of our jobs is to have a good bus run. Is it something we need to look at again? It just seems, I'm not here that often in the morning, but I am out and about all the time, and I'm surprised at how many times the cars are backed up. Right out to Route 4, really, and coming in, and I'm just, like Tom might have a feel for that, would be one of the persons I might ask. He's been around a long time, as to, are we having more drop-offs, and then if we are, is that something we want to talk about or not? I don't know.
At one point, we just did discuss getting periodical ridership censuses. It'd be great to continue with that, if we could.
Right, I think I was just gonna ask for permission to say that. Chair didn't recognize me.
Sorry. I jumped in front of you.
I didn't see you.
No, I don't. Yeah, we had actually requested when we were doing all that problems we were having in the fall, discussing about adding on or subtracting from the high school and stuff, that we would probably like to have a, what's the word? How many kids are on each bus
Census,
coming
yeah.
and going, a little census, so
Yep.
if we could get.
I got that, I'll bring.
In grammar school mostly, but then if they do the high school, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, is this something we can do every quarter or something?
We're getting in halfway through, I suppose, or whatever, quarterly.
They'll make our lives easier when it comes time to talk about bus routes and later.
So another follow-up I do have is, I have the estimate from Sign Spectrum for fixing the sign. I can pass that around to everybody. The estimates for replacing the existing sign faces and replacing the polycarbonate sign faces, school name in reverse. All of that is an estimated cost for two sides at $1,625. The removal and installation per hour, there's a cost for that, and the additional letters, depending on what would be needed, can be purchased upon request. The quote's valid for 60 days. If you wanted us to get a different other quote or any more quotes, we could certainly do that, but this is the one from, I guess, the folks that put that sign in or have managed that sign in the past.
Did she give you any estimate on, I guess it doesn't matter, how many hours it would take for two men to remove it and put it back?
Not to me. I don't know. I can find that out for sure.
Well, let's see what the board, because I started this, so let's see what the board wants to say. I'm just curious, because if I want to get it done, it just, to me, I really like having signs, and it's embarrassing to drive by there and see that both sides tonight are falling down. So it's my understanding that we're going to take the plastic off, or the polycarbonate, or whatever it is, that holds the letters, and throw it away and put a whole new 4x8 sheet on both sides. Is that right?
Yep, 4 rows of
And
polycarbonate
so that they're
track
not
glued to signs.
falling out anymore.
Yeah.
So it would have the new polycarbonate facing and new lettering, and we, if we want to order letters, we can get it to Linda, but we can order letters a million places anytime we want. Sorry, I'm going to ask.
We have quite a few. I mean, we have quite a few letters.
Yeah.
So that's not as urgent as fixing the sign itself.
Well, along with Tim's question, I have the same question, removal and installation per hour, $85 for two men. I mean, I'm only looking at what's out there. I mean, it's probably a half a dozen or 10 screws on the face, and they unscrew them and pull a 4x8 out and go on the other side, and the same thing. So, but I would like to know how many hours they think that would
I'll
take.
find out right now.
I don't need it now.
It's going to be at the most a few hours, I imagine. I mean,
I'm
it takes
hoping
more than an
less
hour.
than-
It takes more than an hour.
I'm thinking less than that.
Oh, I agree. I think at the most. Okay?
Hi. Hey, can your husband tell us how many hours he thinks it's going to take that sign down and put it back? $85 an hour? I'm in a school board meeting, so I'm looking for an answer. Or from you. Are we talking 4 hours? So if we said 4 hours, 2 in, 2 out, we'd be safe? Thank you, Linda. Bye. So she thinks it will take an hour to take it out and an hour to take it in, put it back. So if you took $16.25 and we put $340 on it, 5, 4, 5, 6, 9, 2. I would suggest, excuse me, 1. I would make a motion that we approve repairing that sign. I know Linda's interested in doing it during the vacation, if it's not too late now. That we approve fixing that sign of a figure not to exceed $2,000. It looks like with 4 hours it would be $19.65.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
A second.
Any questions or comments?
This isn't something that's already been done to this sign, right? And it's
We spent, we
So-
spent about 3 or 4 years, a couple of years ago, we
Well,
Yeah,
spent
but
about
what-
$1,000, didn't we?
Is this exactly what
No,
we did to the
what
sign the
they
last
did,
time and then?
and it wasn't
start
$1,000
doing
bucks, it was
again?
several hundred,
Okay.
a small amount, like, and what they did is go in and glued, so you have, I don't know how to do it, but you have a strip that the sign the letter fits behind, so they went and glued those back, the existing. That's all they did. And so they didn't remove anything, or nothing was replaced, and they glued. This time, they're taking that whole panel out and putting a whole newer quality of polycarbonate instead of the old type plastic that they use. Panel in, and so it basically would be a new sign. And then we probably are going to get 20 years use out of it, which probably Mrs. Daypre is going to be happy with because she'd like an electronic sign. I don't blame her, but I'm looking at the money.
As I read this, I'm not sure, isn't that the white panel where you paint the name on and put glue and nails, glue and screw all the strips, the whole letters and numbers? There's also a cover, right? The lift-up cover that, out of plexiglass or
Yeah,
something?
oh.
So that's fine, we're not fixing that or anything, are we? It's
Nope.
just,
It's
I
the
should
track.
throw in some
itself.
new light bulbs too then, while we got it all apart. We must have light bulbs.
I'm sure we do, but that would be up to us.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's a pot, then
Yeah,
have
that's
Tom put in
fine.
light
Yeah,
bulbs.
sure.
Why wait? But, okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Does that come with a button inside a computer where we're gonna do it electronically?
No,
We're still
you
gonna do it
wouldn't
the
know how to run
old-fashioned
it.
They're still
way?
gonna do it the old-fashioned way
Okay.
with somebody holding up the
So,
plastic and.
Just for
somebody
the
else
people
doing it.
out in the public to know, because we know there is a bid out for an electronic sign in town, so I don't wanna confuse the issue.
We just
It's
need
gonna
to
keep
train
what
one of
we
these
got.
new guys. We lost that one guy. What was his name? It said goodbye on the sign. The young kid. I forgot his name.
Okay.
Michael or whatever, okay.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anything
No,
else?
please. Would we also put that on our list of things we approved this year that weren't in our budget? That I asked for
Good, but
earlier?
we have a maintenance budget. I mean, that's
Okay,
fine.
if
I
it
don't
comes
care
out
how
of
you
the
do it.
maintenance,
Yeah,
we
I don't
didn't,
care how
we
you
didn't
do it.
bring that up right now.
I
That's a
understand,
good
but I mean,
point.
we do have a
already have it.
maintenance, in
It
a
won't matter,
regular
but we
budget,
still
we have a
should.
maintenance budget,
Yeah.
you know, and that's maintenance.
So we're approved to pay for that right now?
Yes, ma'am. And if you would call Linda as soon as you can in the morning, or you want to call her now. But really, I'd like to get on that. And just in case she could do it while you guys are on vacation. If it's too late, then it's too late. But weather's supposed to be very good for it, etc.
Okay. Anything else for principal's report? Reading program, did you already look at that?
Or not
Yeah.
yet?
Well, so,
And first grade stuff?
not yet.
Okay, so when that comes up? Or does that come up now?
It's up next.
Okay, then I'll wait for that. I think that's, let's double check. We did have our cop sync test, just so everybody knows that we had our building-wide cop sync test that was coordinated with the staff and the local police. The test was initiated in the office within 30 seconds. All 5 dispatchers replied to the test, and during the test, we were able to identify computer systems in the building that were not receiving the notifications and make those corrections. So there's still 2 that have glitches that are still being evaluated. But we made some significant progress on that, making sure that we are all safe with that process.
The purpose is fine, that's good.
Yes, intentionally this time, yes, intentionally and with forewarning to everybody on hand, yes. Yes, went much more smoothly this time with that in mind.
Right.
Yep. Okay, I think that's all I have Thank you.
Okay, new business, we have,
Oh, wait a minute, you didn't say, does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Daycray?
sorry, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I
for
do.
Mrs. Daycray? Tim?
Thank you. How did is it $25 fee for iPad distribution go this year?
For the netbooks,
Netbooks, I'm sorry.
I think there were less than 5 or 5 total that had requested waivers.
And we did that?
And we did that, yes, because you had let us do that, and it did not exceed, if I recall correctly, I don't have the exact number with me, if I recall correctly, it did not exceed 5.
Okay. And are we sitting on any bad checks regarding that issue? And if so, what are we going to do about them? Careful.
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. Could you look into that and let me know?
There was one check that was an issue, but that person needed to have asked for a waiver and didn't know the process to ask for the waiver.
Okay.
So
Just
one
So
check
is
that we
one
handled
check
about a
paid for?
month ago turned into a waiver request.
Okay.
Yep.
Perhaps I should have asked when Marjorie, how are we sitting on bad checks this year?
I believe we've got 2,
Okay.
and we're in the process of tracking those down.
Okay. Thank you. That's certainly 1,000,000% better than past years.
Any other questions for our principal?
I'm all
Ms.
set. Thank you,
Daycray?
ma'am.
Okay. Grade 1 progress data under new business.
At the last meeting, you asked for a little bit of data as to how the first grade students are doing, and I know Ms. McNeil as well as Ms. Daycray have had a discussion of that, so I'll turn it over to Wendy.
So, awesome, thank you. The information that you were, does everybody have the handout? The information that was given in the packet gives you a chart, and it gives you some summary paragraphs about what is happening with our current first grade students based on the Ames Web benchmarking data. So what we were able to do is put up some statistics on the kindergartners in the spring from 14-15, which are now the first graders in the fall of 15-16, and the same first graders that are now in our winter term in 15-16. And if you look at the chart, there's a couple of things that stand out. Some of the categories that are tested in kindergarten are not tested in first grade because it's presumed that they get to a point where they should be mastering those skills, and they're tested on things beyond that level. So you'll see NA in some of the places in the chart, and it says these are not tested at this time of year for this particular grade level. So that's why in the kindergarten, oral reading is not tested because they're not there yet. But when they get to first grade, in the winter benchmark, you'll see that there's an oral reading score. The 2 most significant scores on this particular chart are, if you look at nonsense words, 3-letter nonsense words that are tested in kindergarten, the expectation is 28 letter sounds. That's the highest test that they're given in first grade. That's the one that has the most weight. I mean, in kindergarten, it's the one that has the most weight. It's the one that's of most significance. And there were 37% that were at the benchmark. If you compare that with our first graders on the oral reading, which is at the bottom, 19 is the expectation, and 58% are at or above the benchmark for that. Those 2 things are comparative numbers. It doesn't look that like it on the chart, but if you're looking at what the highest skill level is that the kindergartners are tested on at the time they're tested, and the highest skill that the first graders are tested on at the time they were tested, we were at 37% with the kindergarten in the spring, and now we're at 58% with the first grade in the winter. That shows a significant increase. One of the things that is significant with the data that we've talked about is that 19 is 19 words per minute. That's the rate. That's the accepted standard or expected standard through the Ames Web benchmarking nationally. Some of our kids are not even just at 19, but they're well beyond 19 words per minute. We have a core group in our first grade that's reading between 100 and 200 words per minute. That's a huge jump from where they had been, and that's a significant increase for the kids that are in that class. I did have the opportunity personally over the last probably 6 or 7 days to observe a full class period in all 3 of the first grade classes. And I did get to see some of what they're doing in the first grade classes with the rotation that they're doing to try to catch those kids that are not quite at that level. They have made some changes, and they've mentioned it down here. The first grade RTI block was extended from 30 minutes to 60 minutes for this current year, which is giving them double the amount of time for support. During the intervention block, students received small group instruction provided by the first grade team, which consists of a bunch of different people. And they received their intervention based on their areas of weakness. So the data is pointing out the areas of weakness for us, and we're addressing those specifically in the small group intervention. After we looked at the results from the Ames Web winter benchmark, the one we just had, the team determined that there was more targeted instruction needed in a couple of different areas. So the last 20 minutes of their ELA block, their literacy block, has been restructured to group all first grade students together. It's not just the first grade students in Miss Harvey's class, or the first grade students in Miss Hathaway's class, or the first grade students in Miss Baldwin's class. They're doing it actually together. And they're grouping students collectively within the first grade so that each of the different people that are offering interventions is targeting all of the kids that need that from any of the 3 grades. So they're working on things like phonics, things like handwriting, sight words, fluency, and comprehension. So they're continuing to make changes in the programming based on what the data is showing us, and the kids are showing results. They're showing that they're increasing in their scores. So there's progress being made. It's actually wonderful to see. Kids are really responding well with the targeted instruction, and what they're doing is they're trying to recycle the work that they're doing so that it's not just one lesson of what they're weak in, but it's a couple of lessons over time, and then they're recycling that into the regular classroom instruction. So they're getting a huge dose of what they need, and hopefully when the next assessments come up, they will be showing progress in that area. In addition to that, some information from the first grade teachers. All students participate in 60 minutes of core instruction, and they're using that walk to read model, which is the one that I just described to you. So all students have demonstrated skill growth in sight words, phonics, and oral reading. 91% of the grade has made adequate or accelerated progress based on core instruction. 91% of the first grade has made adequate or accelerated progress based on core instruction, which is awesome. It's fantastic. We're proud of them. We're excited about the progress that they're making. So the one other piece that I wanted to mention was that one of the interesting things that is occurring in this class is instead of having a couple kids that are really, really low and a couple kids that are really, really high, they have some groups of kids. They have between 6 and 8 kids that are in the enrichment level that are actually performing well beyond, and those are the kids that are reading 100 to 200 words per minute in first grade. So they're working on trying to do more to target that age group, to target that skill group, to move those enrichment kids even further based on what they're showing that they know. And they're trying to work on the outliers at the other end to make sure that those gaps are closed as well. Looking for any more stats that you might need, but they're doing great. They're doing great. Hopefully that gives you the information that you need on first grade. And we'll give you more updates as you request them, if you'd like.
Is this published anywhere?
What are you looking at? It is not published anywhere. If you mean on our website or...
Yeah.
It is not yet.
In general, do all schools publish this? Is it available to look at any school, or is it available to look at...
Ames Web data would not be it's not like NEWA scores or NECAP scores or anything like that.
Okay. A question that has been asked a couple of times, and I think it came up at candidates night, and I just don't have an answer. So the question is, why does the afternoon kindergarten afternoon kindergarten class come to school and immediately go to lunch? Why don't they eat lunch at home, giving them more time in kindergarten?
They could.
I'm just
that's a consideration that we can make. There is time in the morning for the morning group to have snack, and there's time in the afternoon for the afternoon kids to have lunch. There is a significant free and reduced population, so the free and reduced population does get their access to their free and reduced lunch if they're in the PM, and their free and reduced breakfast option if they're in the AM. So that's one of the reasons why we provide that meal option
what the reasons
in both
were,
halves.
so I could answer the question when they asked me. I just,
Could be the only good meal a day those kids
Yeah, one reason is the free and reduced population that we have.
And I understand that, and I'm not going to get into an argument with any of you asking whether it's our job to feed people in school or kids in school. I was just asking the question. Thank you.
Welcome. Anything else on first grade stuff? Does that satisfy what you were looking for, or do we still need to give you something else that we didn't?
I'll spend more time on it, but that's a good start, thank you.
Okay, great.
And I personally, I wouldn't hesitate to put that on your website, on our website, just so, because that's as I knew would happen. I mean, every son has 3-5 letters on kindergarten, you know, so there's a lot of interest out there.
Anything else for new business? Anything for old business? The sign is on here, but we just covered that, right? Was there something else with the sign?
No, I think that was it.
So policies, I know we have a number of policies that were out for second reading. Is that something that we'll review at the next meeting when
Yes,
Scott's here?
yeah, it'll be on the first one. Just, I've got one question on the parking lot. You've got neck review costs. Is that something you want additional data on? I know that we've done that in the past. I don't want to redo something that, is that something you want additional data on, or?
No, I don't need any additional data. I just want to know how many kids are going to be involved. We started this program, and it's been working well, but we started with 5 or 6 kids thinking we might have 6 or 7 kids, and eventually it would be less kids from Northwood going there, and there'd be maybe having more tuition kids coming in from other towns, but it doesn't seem to be that way. So I just want to...
It's full up right now, isn't it? It's full up right now, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's, to me, it's like the Co-Brown problem, because we have one of the best programs in the area. People are either living with their grandparents or they're moving into town to take care of some of the things, some of the programs that we have.
I don't buy that.
Well,
and I would certainly, because I have it all, I think, at home, love to bring you in and have a discussion about the next program anytime you want. And it was sold to us as an autism program. It is no longer an autism program. It's a behavioral program. And so I can absolutely guarantee you that it's always going to be full. I would bet anything. And
what you're saying is correct, and I was here when we started the program.
Yes. And
that's
so
part of what I was
we're never going to get
is
to the point where we can, in an autism program, we don't have 8 autistic kids that need to go into the neck or they'd be there. So because they're going to fill it up as a behavioral program, it's always going to be full. It's just always going to be full. I'm totally convinced of that.
And I'm beginning to be convinced of that too.
Yes.
That's what my
so that's a good
I
question.
always had asked that, and it's usually around this
You
time.
guys agree?
It goes on reputations if we agree on something. Okay.
And
So,
it
yeah,
always
I'd
is
like
going to go back to, and I thought that was really what your question was. We were sold on it that we would have that for a very short time, and then we would take it on ourselves and reduce the cost of it, but keep the program. And I've always been in favor of that, as you all know.
And weren't you presented with information like 3 or 4 years ago by Mr. Rooning that proved that it was better to do it the way that you're doing it?
No, certainly not. I was given information with Mr. Rooney that I disagree with that totally. I believe that we should be doing it on our own. I've never changed my mind on that. He hasn't changed my mind on that. You haven't changed my mind on that. Nor is anybody else going to change my mind on that.
What was presented was basically stating that it is better and more cost effective to do it as we're doing it rather than taking it in-house and doing it on our own.
The way he presents it, yes.
Is he going to be here next
Right,
meeting?
okay, but as long as that was presented, I just want to make sure.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
It probably makes sense to talk to.
I would like us to have a discussion.
Just to bring us back, the reason it was put on here was exactly this discussion. There was question, again, there's question, disagreement as to whether we should continue to do the program as it is or whether we should look to try to do it ourselves in-house. It was something at the time it had last come up that, again, it was one of those things that we punted on. And so that's why we captured it as a parking lot item to then resurface, to stop punting, to reevaluate, just as we did 2 years ago, to make a decision to continue or to do something else, which is why Bob is saying to us, what board members we need to make that decision or have further discussion about it.
We'll do an update at the next meeting.
And I didn't bring it up because I gave up 2 years ago,
Well,
you know.
Dave
so-
had brought it up at one point.
Yes, that's what I'm
ended up-
saying,
That's
yes,
how it ended
yeah.
up on here.
Yes, but I understand, I can read the writing on the wall, and I am never gonna win this issue, and I've moved on to other battles.
Fair enough.
for me, it's, we approve all of this in the beginning as a NEC program for autistic kids, and that's fine. But now if we have more kind of going out of autistic and more behavioral, the reason we pay $150,000 to the NEC group out of Massachusetts is because they were highly trained in autistic, and they brought all their training to us, and we were training 6 to 8 people. And if we're not doing that, I can't see spending 150 grand
Let's do
for
this.
someone.
We'll do an
So
update.
we
Yeah.
have this as a parking lot item. I don't think it makes sense to have any further dialogue on
Not
it
tonight.
tonight. We don't have our special education director. We don't have the facts and information that we need. So we'll put it as an agenda item for the next meeting, and then we can have a conversation, have the
I'd
information.
appreciate a lot
to
of
make some
the background, because I wasn't here for that stuff too, so if you're prepared to do that, that'd be great.
Anything else for old business?
Yeah, should we, for the parking lot items, should we get rid of the calendar development and the insurance bids? If those
Yes.
are resolved,
Yes.
so we can take those off the parking lot.
Anything else? Dave, food service. The question was asked the other night, do we have to wait to talk about food service, or is that something that we can start talking about again now?
Like an anticipated opening.
Well, I think that it would probably be appropriate to have as a topic at the second March meeting, because by then your vote is going to be over with.
So we should wait till after.
And then you'll know exactly how you're going to move forward with that.
And I agree with you a lot. I disagree that we wait. I think that if we wait, I think we should make the decision, because 5 of us have been here for a year and we went through some of this. And I think if we wait, now we bring in with the possibility there'll be 2 brand new people sitting here, and we may have to go through the whole process again. I think that we did our due diligence in negotiations, and we've brought this up over the past year, that it is an interest of this board to probably look into approving an outside firm to take care of our lunchroom.
Well, I don't know, because, a lot has happened in a year, and are there other places that might be out there that could do better by a smaller school or something like that, I mean, there was only 2 that were brought in.
There were
3.
There were only 2 here the night I came.
But we looked at 3.
Oh, okay,
One
sorry.
was out.
Because there was only 2 that were here the night that I
There was
here.
one that we just
3 ruled out early.
ruled out
Yeah,
summarily, I
think
guess
there
is the
was
next word.
a clear-cut choice.
Yeah, I believe there were.
And I guess the question too, is it the same, like, are they willing to do the same thing that they said that they were willing to do a year ago? Are they going to have to come back in and do a reevaluation and everything like that also?
Dave and I are hoping so. We ate like pigs that night. We're the only 2 here.
Well, here's what I would suggest, since it is, as Bob's recommending, to wait until after the vote. I would encourage the board not to start the process completely from scratch again. We went through full due diligence on it. We had quotes. There was a strong front runner. It wasn't, I don't even think it was close. I think we all felt strongly that one was far ahead of the other. Obviously, before any decision is made to move forward, yes, it would be appropriate. It's a year old at this point to have a revised numbers from them, which I would assume they would expect. They know why we delayed, but I wouldn't go back and revisit and start all over from scratch. But
I would agree with that. I
that's
mean,
my 2 cents.
no matter what happens, you're going to have at least 3 consistent board members here, so.
Yeah, and I don't want to assume that contract's going to pass at this point, but beyond that discussion, I think we have to have it because it's negotiations, in a non-meeting or in non-public.
We have to have what? We have to have the discussion about the food in a non-meeting?
No, but
There's other factors.
there's
that
other
need to be
factors,
discussed.
yes. regarding negotiations that we really can't talk about in public, or shouldn't.
Any other old business? I had asked at the last meeting that we add committee reports. Were there any committees that have met or? No. Okay.
That's fine. With the technology committee has been meeting, I just haven't been able to meet, so reviewing the minutes and stuff.
I didn't catch any of what
I'm
you
sorry,
said.
the technology committee has been meeting regularly each month, but I've been missing them because I have a work meeting that conflicts. But.
One of the things that I intend to add to the calendar, the thing that we were working on is, so I think, you know, it should be in our, what are we calling it?
Parking lot?
Parking lot, no, the other one.
The calendar.
The calendar, and we need to come up with a name of that for that. But, so I think we should put in there that the facilities committee meets ... 3 times during the year or whatever, that the, when should the committee that meets on the clubs and get all of that in there too, so that we're not sitting here wishing we had met.
Yeah, and I think at one point I had the budget committee meetings, they're planned out, those should be reflected.
Yeah, all of that stuff, if we just put it in there so that, you know, as we go through the year, we can remind ourselves, I think it'd be wonderful. And I'm assuming once we get this going, it will be in our packet every month.
That was my intent.
Yep, good.
Okay, future meetings, our next regular meeting is March 3rd at 6:30. Remember voting day, March 8th, important polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at St. Joe's. March 17th is the second meeting of the month. It is the reorganizational meeting. There will be at least one new member on the board at that point. And March 28th is the joint board meeting at 6:15. Just attendance has been extremely low. I know I've been one of those people who have been able to attend, but the joint board meetings are as much a responsibility of the board members as the regular Northwood meetings are. Any we do need to go into non-public, but before we do, are there any closing public comments? Mr. Chase?
I'd like a copy of the sheet that Wendy was referring to as she talked about
The first grade
the
stuff.
first grade progress data, if that's available. And if you're going to do this again, and I'm going to sit in the audience and try and follow her remarks as a member of the public, it would be helpful to pass those out. And I'm not sure why you didn't think about that. Thank you, Tim.
Well, to the public.
Oh, we ran out of packets.
They're not in the public packet.
They don't show.
All we get is the minutes and the agenda in the public packets.
And thank you
Look through the whole
for
packet of what you get. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Chase, was that all? I guess he's out here.
He's already gone.
You didn't ask for permission to leave or a hall pass or anything. Question for Mr. Superintendent. Have we got any input back about a March 7th meeting for SAU?
Very little. Very little. There was a, we sent a...
You saw it. Oh.
We sent an email
Well,
out.
that was maybe somebody
To the
replied
15th.
afterwards. There's only 3 of us that said
We
they
sent
could
out
make
an
it.
email to 15 board members on the joint board. We've got about 4 responses. So at this point in time, we haven't rescheduled a meeting other than the 28th.
Yes,
Did you
Mr.
still have
Chase.
more to say?
He wants to be
I
dismissed.
have one other thing to say, that is to thank you for your service to the board, and also to thank Mr. Ruth for his service to the board, and to thank him for once again coming forward as a candidate. So thank you.
Thank you. I thought you were waving the line.
That too.
Ginger, did you have something?
Yeah, a couple of things. Tom had the positive comments. I guess mine are going to be a little bit more on the negative side. A couple of things that I heard tonight, I was really surprised. I know when the budget committee was meeting, I certainly was under the impression that the reading program had already been determined. And to hear tonight that that's not the case, that maybe there's a different program that's going to be considered in whatever, that's a little disconcerting. Hopefully, whichever program is chosen will come in within the budgeted amount. I was also quite surprised to hear that the curriculum director had left sometime before the end of December. And yet the entire time when we were meeting in January with the budget committee and reviewing warrant articles, etc., at deliberative session, when we were going over the warrant article to add 2 more days or 3 more days, I've forgotten at this point, to that position, nothing was mentioned about the individual who had been in that position was no longer here. And I think that's somewhat deceiving. It wasn't spoken at the meetings. It wasn't pointed out. All the discussions pertain to the existing person is going to be doing this. We would like this to happen with that. I just think that the board needs to be a little bit more forthcoming in the future if there are situations like that, because especially if there's a situation where a decision needs to be made by the townspeople or the budget committee or any other committee, they need the full information. And finally, just a reminder, since you've got future meetings here, there is a budget committee meeting on March 16th. Now, I realize that that's before your reorganization meeting, so I'm going on the presumption that since the existing person to the budget committee will still be here, that she will still come to the budget committee meeting on the 16th. Okay, that's all.
Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion to go into non-public?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, Tim?
5-minute break for Gary to break down?
Yep, but roll call, hold on, Barbie.